Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our call. This is our LGBTBE teleconference, How to Connect with Other LGBTBEs, Industry Clusters, Business-to-Business Connections, and Tiered Contracting. This is Phil Georgiani. I'm the Senior Manager of Supplier Diversity at the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And joining us today on the call, we have Dan Nielsen, President of Bishop McCann. Bishop McCann is a certified LGBTBE. They produce meetings, incentives, and live events. And Bishop McCann has shown some tremendous leadership in developing supplier diversity efforts as an LGBTBE, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. And also joining us on the call is Deborah Quade, who is our Supplier Diversity Champion at Kellogg and a member of our Procurement Council. And Deborah has some really great insight on how LGBTBEs can identify other LGBTBEs for partnerships and how those partnerships can help you deliver value when you're interacting with the corporate procurement chain. So just kind of an overview before we go into our panel discussion. I wanted to talk a little bit about the overall topic of business-to-business connections among our certified LGBTBEs. So developing connections between our LGBT entrepreneurs, we feel at the NGLCC, is a really crucial part of your long-term success and a major benefit of participation in the Supplier Diversity Initiative. And it's really important, we think, for our LGBTBEs to be aware there are contracting opportunities at all points on the corporate supply chain, in addition to opportunities to do business directly with your fellow entrepreneurs. And we know that there's a great desire and hunger among our universe of LGBTBEs to pursue these opportunities. So we just want to make sure that you know that a really integral part of your business-to-business strategy is definitely attendance at our National Business and Leadership Conference, which, as most of you probably know, is July 29th through August 1st in Las Vegas at Caesars Palace. You can register online at nglcc.org/events. This is a really critical gathering of LGBT entrepreneurs and corporate procurement officers. As many of you know, we offer matchmaking sessions between our corporate partners and the LGBTBEs. As part of our package with the matchmakers, there's also an opportunity, it's called Let's Connect, that allows LGBTBEs to connect with each other directly to make appointments on site in Las Vegas. So we definitely encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity when you're on site in Vegas as the software is rolled out. As many of you know, NGLCC has an online database which you can use to connect with corporate partners, but you can also use it to search for other LGBTBEs by commodity, by location, by specific name. So we strongly encourage you, as you develop your B2B strategy, to log on and take advantage of that portal. Another crucial area you're going to want to explore is local affiliate chamber membership. Always keep in mind that your local affiliate is a really powerful resource for developing connections with other entrepreneurs, especially in your footprint. So we really strongly encourage participation in networking events to kind of develop your B2B strategy. So that's kind of the overview of the topic, but I really wanted to move forward with our discussion with our panelists and get some insight. So we're going to start, Deborah. Business to business is a pretty broad category. So would you be able to discuss some of the different ways that you've seen diverse suppliers collaborate to deliver solutions?
Yes, I think there's really arrangements out there for everyone or for every solution. There are the highly structured, formalized joint ventures. There are partnerships. There can really be a one-off if an opportunity comes up to do a one-time only quote, where you put together a temporary arrangement just to meet that customer need, and then afterwards you can evaluate whether or not it makes sense to create something more permanent. I think that there are a couple things out there. One is that you need to go into it with your eyes wide open and make sure that, anytime you're moving into an agreement that you are very, very comfortable and that your best interests are well represented. Sometimes we think, the customer has an opportunity, we need to act now, but you always have to remember, to take care of yourself and your business first. From a corporate perspective, you might have an individual buyer who has a personal preference on what type of arrangement, a formalized arrangement they would like to see. I've actually seen some come through where I've not seen any formal agreement on paper, that the buyer has required. The buyer is satisfied working with one of the companies, knowing that the other is in support because it brings the broader vision. And what we're really talking about here is a situation where, and I'm just going to make something up. For instance, Kellogg might have a contract throughout Western Michigan, and maybe the buyer is saying, I want someone who does snow removal and landscaping. And your company is currently very proficient in West Michigan in landscaping. However, you really don't have the physical equipment that it would take to do the snow removal. And so you would look for someone to partner that would have the other capabilities and equipment so that the two of you combined would be able to go in and do that corporate quote. So again, a lot of different ways that you can look at that, and my recommendation is you can actually Google joint ventures, partnerships, and really get a feel for it prior to speaking with your attorney and determining the best course of action.
Absolutely. And in addition to, obviously it's very important for business owners to be informed about what kind of partnership they're forming. As they move forward, what are some ways that you've seen diverse businesses seek out other businesses for partnership, whether it's, women-owned businesses working with other women-owned businesses or branching out into other diverse categories?
I think that's really important. I think that, your first line, obviously, is to check our existing LGBTBE database and find out if there is someone that has those complementary equipment or services that could accompany you. And I'm using that as an example, but it might actually be capabilities, it might be geographic footprint. There's a lot of different things you would look for to partner. I think attending the conference and doing that networking is invaluable because sometimes there's that extra dimension and a one-on-one conversation that might be missing in a database search. And just as an aside, I would recommend to all of you to make sure that the keywords that you have entered in your database are up to date and they're comprehensive because we all think differently. So we all might be searching for a different type of keyword when looking for a partner and might, miss an easy reference. But I think you're absolutely correct. I think that at this point, the ability to expand our search, most local chambers of commerce have diversity subcommittees, and so there might be some, local resources there. But I notice that some of our truly, insightful LGBTBEs have begun to attend, like the WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council events, maybe even some regional events. We have a Women's Business Council, Great Lakes, or the NMSDC, the National Minority Supplier Council, and begin to find out some of those potential partners as well. Don't limit yourself and say, well, there's a corporate contract that I really feel as though we'd be able to do a portion of, but I can't find a partner. Really start to get creative. And I think another resource that might be helpful is the local SBTDC. It's the Small Business Technology Development Center. It's an SBA program. And they're historically housed within universities and colleges, but they're nationwide. And they're a tremendous resource for finding out, what businesses that are within your category are doing, their size, and they might actually be able to make some introductions and help you partner as well. So I think there's a lot of different resources out there, but in all honesty, if you don't attend events and if you don't register in databases, we can't ask you to quote because we don't know you're there. So you've got to find ways to make yourself known, and you've also got to find creative ways to find the right partner. So I think we could actually maybe put together, I'm just thinking outside the box here, some bullet points on some of these available resources and maybe make them available to all of the folks who have called in today, so there's kind of a takeaway on this.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I also think that and maybe you could comment on this, there's probably times as, LGBTBE or diverse businesses looking for, that equipment vendor, but then there's also probably a lot of times when you're, if you go out and attend these events, you don't know the types of partnerships that can kind of emerge just from, the interactions that you have from meeting such a wide array of diverse businesses, especially when you're stepping into, if you're an LGBTBE and attending a WeBank conference or what have you.
And I think there are, one thing is if you have current corporate contacts, perhaps just start that dialogue. What are some upcoming events? What would you recommend I would attend? Do you have any suppliers that you could introduce me to? The main thing, I think, is when you walk into a room and you feel as though, oh, my God, I don't know anyone in this room, I've taught myself over the years to walk up to the other person who's standing by themselves and just put out my hand, introduce myself, exchange business cards. I've met, phenomenal suppliers that way, but more importantly, I found people I can connect with other people. And that's tremendous.
Yeah, that's an important point. I think also, I mentioned earlier, we offer the Matchmaker Sessions at conference, which is, an opportunity for LGBTBEs to meet with corporate partners to discuss, primarily upcoming opportunities. But it's also a good chance if you are an LGBTBE that has experience teaming with other diverse businesses or want some insight into how that's valuable to the company that you're conversing with, that's also a good opportunity to start that discussion.
And as we spoke the other day, I actually have one of our Kellogg LGBTBEs is very, very good in promotionals, and we have a great relationship with her, a relationship that continues to grow as she finds ways to enhance her services. But one area that she does not currently necessarily do is the fulfillment area. And so she actually is speaking with a certified WBE in our region who does fulfillment, talking about how could they begin to look at combining services so that they could take both of their businesses to a new level and actually be competing in a third area for Kellogg business. So I thought that was very, very creative way to look at it also. It's something that neither one of them is currently doing.
Absolutely, yeah. That's really exciting, and it shows just, the ways in which it kind of makes it easier for, anytime you're going to, whether it's a procurement person or a supplier diversity person, when you're delivering a more comprehensive solution, you're obviously making their job easier and you're, advancing your ability to deliver that solution and move forward on the bid. So, Dan, I wanted to talk a little bit about as I mentioned earlier, Bishop McCann has shown some really great leadership in working to include certified LGBTBEs in your own procurement chain. So I guess if you wanted to tell the participants a little bit about your program that you're developing and kind of your overall goals for LGBT inclusion.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Phil. First, I just wanted to say that I think it's pretty exciting that we've actually gotten to the day where we're starting to talk about this as a supplier, building our own supplier diversity programs to benefit our businesses. And I'm also excited that the only reason that we're even having this conversation is through the association that we have with the NGLCC and also our local chamber. So that's, I think, we've come a long way, I think. Don't you all?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We actually have a number of we have two LGBTBEs, Integrity Staffing and OBOC Solutions, who have actually moved on to corporate partnership as well. So they have, a very formal, institutionalized supplier diversity program. And I think, one of the things that we wanted to talk about, and I know Deborah's mentioned this in earlier conversations, is, increasingly supplier diversity professionals at the corporate partners are seeking and expecting diverse suppliers to include diversity in their own supply chains when they're able to. So I think it's something that speaks to both what the market is driving and also to the sense of kind of community and being a movement that's growing among the LGBTBEs.
Absolutely. So let me talk a little bit about our own program and why we developed it, and give you all some tips as to what to think about as you're building your own, or before you even start thinking about building your own program. I think you have to first identify some reasons why you're doing it in the first place. And so what we did is we got our executive team together to talk about building a supplier diversity program outside of being an LGBT-owned company. We wanted to make sure that we included all, diverse segments, minority-owned businesses, women-owned, veteran-owned, in addition to LGBT-owned. And we came up with a mission statement that really was inspired by one of our customers, Genentech. And the mission statement, I'm going to just kind of read to you, is it as a forward-thinking company, Bishop McCann believes supplier diversity leads to greater innovation and a better competitive edge in today's business environment. And it was really kind of a light bulb for me, because as I got into this, into the NGLCC and started working with it, I kind of felt like we were doing this to get access to sort of a fair system. Does that make sense? That we were all sitting at the table together, and I get that. But when you realize that these corporations, and Deborah, maybe you can comment on this, but diversity really means providing greater innovation and a better competitive edge, so that you have just lots of different input into a problem solving or into something that they're working on. Deborah, would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we forget that one of the real inherent benefits of diversity is the diversity of thought. So, you really want to have the most input into any problem-solving solution, creation of product or service of the future. You want to make sure that you've got everyone included in that thought process. And I would like to follow up also on the corporate expectations, because you're absolutely correct. I recommend to my suppliers that while they should never have the first slide of their PowerPoint be their diversity certification, they should also never walk out of the room without sharing that. So at the very least, it should always be your last slide. You want to make sure that you're, sharing and communicating that. I have had research scientists, buyers come back from events and say there were no diverse suppliers, and it was because no one had put their certification up in their booth. No one had it on their business cards. No one was self-identifying. So even though I had folks that were going there with the express intent of finding diverse suppliers, they did not know whether or not there was anyone present. So number one, make sure that's included. But we do ask all of our aligned suppliers, people who have contracts with us, to report their diversity spend, and that includes our diverse suppliers. And we actually have an annual recognition called the Sojourner Truth Award for the diverse supplier that has the highest percentage of diversity spend. So it's not the highest dollars, because obviously there's a full range of dollars out there, as much as it is the commitment to spend a high percentage of your revenues with other diverse suppliers. And corporate buyers think about that. They might not always say it, but they're always thinking, what are you doing to help diversity or to help create jobs in the community? So I think that's a really good point.
Yep. So I think the first thing is we have to be proud of who we are and be able to share that with our with potential partners, but our corporate clients, but also our existing clients. Hallmark is a good example. Because of our chamber, they've added supplier diversity for LGBTBEs as well as veteran-owned businesses to their supply chain because of our chamber. And so they don't right now have a single vendor except Bishop McCann that is certified LGBTBE. So they're working together on trying to get that going. So the next thing I think you have to do is to come up with the purpose of your program. And for us, it's the clients and the markets, that we compete in. And also the fact that the primary measure of our success is our client satisfaction and also company value. So in addition to being sensitive to the needs of our associates and our communities, I think that program, that's a core value of our program. And then I think it's developing the goals. And one of the primary goals, or the first goals, is to develop the survey as sort of Deborah alluded to, is that you have to find out of your existing suppliers, who are diverse-owned businesses. So it's developing that survey, and just I wanted to tell all of you that I can send out basically the beginning of this program that we have that includes our mission statement, our purpose, and our goals after the teleconference. So, and then I'll be sending you also the survey tool that we'll be using for our existing suppliers. In addition to, we'll be using it with any bid process that we enter into with potential partners that we work with.
If I could just build upon that a little bit, I think looking for diverse suppliers is from whether you are a certified company yourself or whether you're corporate, you're really looking for the same basic traits. You're looking for innovation. You're working for a good, solid cost structure. I mean, you need the right pricing and the right delivery, so you want a good track record there. And when you're looking for a partner, you want to make sure that you're partnering with someone like that. And what do each of you bring to the table? Is it a geographic reach? Is it a different set of capabilities? Perhaps it's expanding into new industry sectors. Both of you might have niches, and there's an opportunity to expand and do something completely different. And so I think, start to create kind of a vision statement of where you want your business to go and what actions need to be taken. And creating your own diverse supply base is definitely a huge aspect of that. Looking at potential customers and what their needs and requirements are is another portion of it. And then whether there's opportunity for partnering that would help you expand and meet the other two goals is the third component of it. So I think part of it is business planning and how you put together all the capabilities and strengths you already have and just get organized for how you're going to move forward.
Absolutely. I think another key goal for this program that we're trying to set up is that we've gotten word from our largest client, Genentech, that they're going to be starting to ask for our Tier 2 spend, defining that by those vendors that we hire to do work for Genentech. But our goal is to get this program completely set up so that we'll be able to send out what we've done to all of our clients, regardless of whether they have an actual program or not. So we're hoping to be able to feed them and be able to get it to sort of work the other way, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I think it shows how this is, as I mentioned earlier, it's something that's growing out of, kind of the identity that a lot of our suppliers have built as LGBTBEs, but it's really something that's driving the bottom line, and it's really being driven by the market in the diversity and inclusion world.
Yes, done correctly, supplier diversity should be contributing to your top line and your bottom line.
So,
I think the other thing is that from our perspective, our buyers can meet their goals by what we would call Tier 1 or a prime supplier for the federal government or a Tier 2. And so, there are different ways for our buyers to put together programs or quotes that would help them meet their diversity goals. And I think being aware of how that buyer has goals, whether they have goals, and how they can attain them, finding creative solutions for that, as well as what you already know how to do, which is cost savings or alleviating their pain points or bringing efficiencies to the program. I think it just becomes another tool in your toolbox.
Absolutely. So I wanted to give our participants an opportunity to ask questions as well. So what I'm actually going to do is take the call off of lecture mode now. So I just ask if anyone has noise in the background or if anything's going on to just mute your phone. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay. So, yeah, I wanted to take this opportunity to see if anyone on the call has any questions for Dan or Deborah.
Yeah, Phil, I'd like to fill one in. This is Harvey. I had a recent situation where I'm an LGBTE, but the companies that I represent as a manufacturer's representative are not. But when selling those lines to a particular corporate partner, they can't recognize those vendors in their diversity dollar spend because they're not billing my business, they're billing those vendors. So the name in their files doesn't fall into the category. How can we, and I don't know if that makes sense or not, but how could we help that corporate partner reallocate their dollars so they would increase their dollar spend in diversity?
Well, in the purest sense, that goes back to the question of Tier 1 and Tier 2, and I absolutely understand what you're saying because this comes up quite frequently. And so if and maybe I can use, yes, as a manufacturer's rep, I understand exactly what you're saying. Maybe it's a lotion for our restrooms, a hand lotion or something like that. You are bringing them to the table and you are doing all the legwork, but when we actually cut the purchase order, it's to the actual hand lotion company. So what that would really be is a Tier 2. That the corporate buyer should be holding the hand lotion company's feet to the fire, so to speak, and saying, what is your diversity spend? And then they would be reporting the spend with you, as well as whatever other diversity spend they would have. Because in supplier diversity, it's always going to be who the check is cut to. The only alternative is if you are a large distributor, and let's just say if everyone's familiar with like a Grainger, a company that does everything from safety supplies to nuts and bolts to hand sanitizers, and they do all manner of things. So, a Grainger is a distributor that you cut the check directly to Grainger, and they supply all the other parts. So you would actually have to be the person that they're cutting the check to. And the reason we can't get into those gray areas in supplier diversity is that it opens up a whole can of worms if you start counting dollars that you're not writing the check to. So as long as we stick to whoever we're writing the check to, then we're all kind of safe in that, and no one can ever accuse anyone of any type of shady dealings. But I know it kind of traps you in a situation like yours. We actually have that with we have a woman who represents our cranberries, and we buy a lot of cranberries. And we have the same situation where we really have to go back to the cranberry supplier and ask, what their diversity expenditures are, and they would include her.
So
no easy answer.
There's no easy answer. Let me just tag on something to make sure I'm understanding. When you're saying I would be the Tier 2, which is fine, but how do I hold that vendor's feet to the fire in terms of acknowledging that there's some type of diversity link that got them to that corporate partner? Or it's just really complex, and I just have to be satisfied that I did a good thing.
Well, no. I think does the corporate the corporate partner asks for Tier 2 diversity reporting? Is that, I mean, the corporate partner, because you have the relationship with the corporate partner, and they
Correct.
should be sending out a survey to their suppliers saying, what is your diversity spend?
Right.
Because then it becomes incumbent upon that, you know, manufacturer to make sure that they keep you on board, because you see, the way I look at it is we're the Kellogg company. If you're, I'm going to pick on Target stores. If you're Target, you probably cannot replace Kellogg because there's an expectation that, you know, Kellogg has certain products that cannot be duplicated. However, a Target buyer still has diversity goals, so they look at us and they say, what is your Tier 2 spend with diverse partners? So I report to all of our customers, national and regional, on a quarterly basis what our diversity spend is. So even though Kellogg is never going to be certified, or to the best of my knowledge, certified as a diversity-owned company, we still report our diversity spend so the Target buyers can still meet their goals. And it would be a similar situation. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. Thank you very much. And I'll point that out to the diversity director of that company and see if there's a way that they can take credit for what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And just having that dialogue might also help the manufacturer to open his or her eyes that there are additional opportunities out there with diverse companies. So you could actually be, like, it would be the domino effect, right?
One can only hope.
Mm-hmm.
Without hogging the discussion, if there are other questions, I don't want to hog, but I do have another question, so I can wait for everyone else to go around. Unless there are no other questions.
Why don't you, I think you can go ahead and ask another question.
Okay. This was just another interesting situation. I applied to one of the corporate partners to be the LGBTBE. The diversity director was excited and all the other stuff. Went in, registered, filled out the online application, and they wanted a certificate of liability insurance for my company to be attached to the application. But I was trying to explain to them that it wasn't my product. I was linking them to the brand that had the product. So it would be that manufacturer providing the certificate of liability insurance. And it was a concept that they could not grasp. And they said, well, you need liability insurance anyhow. And we had to go around a number of discussions until they just said, oh, okay, fine. But so I feel like I wore them down, but I don't know if there's a way around that just going forward and anticipating future needs. When people say they want a certificate of liability insurance from my agency, it really doesn't apply.
No, you're absolutely correct. And that's, there again, it's, I guess, that procurement team or that particular buyer, if it was a buyer, what I'm thinking is maybe it was an administrative person or a person who didn't have a lot of understanding about how your business runs, because the average MROS buyer who works with a lot of manufacturers' reps is going to understand that, and you're not going to be having that dialogue. So either it was a new person or an administrative support person who is just basically being told you have to the suppliers have to complete this entire portfolio or they're not going to be accepted in the system. Not really a situation that would be unique due to your diversity certification as much as it is a procurement snafu where sometimes the pendulum on red tape just swings too far in one direction or the other. If it was just a case of uploading a certificate, then what I might do in all honesty is type out a statement reporting exactly what you just said verbally and uploading that so that when the person owns it, all the facts are there saying if, at the time of quote, whatever companies I'm representing that would best fit the quoting opportunity, I will include the certificate of insurance at that time because I absolutely only represent companies that, have liability coverage. And explain it. And, kind of figure the lowest common denominator always assume that the person on the other end has no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Deborah, that's a good idea. But Harvey, wouldn't
great idea. Yeah.
But wouldn't Harvey, your insurance provider, recommend that you have any liability insurance at all? Because I mean, we find ourselves in very similar situations where we're outsourcing to certain suppliers that provide event services for our events, but we have to have liability insurance just in case, we got sort of caught up in that in a lawsuit like that. So, but you don't, in your position, you don't need any?
I don't, and other rep agencies that I compete with don't, and I can check into it again, certainly, but what I was advised was by incorporating my agency, that created a corporate veil that separated me from liability. And that was the piece of advice I was given. But maybe the rules have changed and I need to update, and I need to check that out. So thank you for bringing that up. But because that may not just be enough.
Or maybe you'll get a very small policy that won't cost you much that would give you a certificate.
Right.
The one,
it is all part of the learning process, and not just for us, but for the people who we're trying to do business with. It's an education process for them too.
Yeah, I think the main question, and this is, I put on my, because I was previously a buyer, I put on my buyer hat, who would ultimately be liable for the product, and that would probably not be you. It would be the person that they would create the purchase order to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you both for addressing that question, because I think it's part and parcel to this whole how we network with each other and how we figure out the smoothest path to do so.
Yeah, and I think that's important too. I also another point I wanted to raise actually with Dan is, so when you're thinking about supplier diversity, when you're thinking about your own efforts, kind of what are some of the ways that you think about benchmarks and how you measure success? I mean, obviously you can put a number on it, but is there kind of a way to think more broadly about what means success when establishing a supplier diversity program?
Yeah, I certainly think that there's definitely the objective data, that we'll be able to track our tier one, which we would consider non-billable dollars. That's our tier one. And then tier two, which would be our billable spending, the stuff that we would run through our clients. I think that there would be some sort of, key performance indicators that we would come up with that might be survey related, that we could actually do surveys with our clients to see what they're looking for and what they want us to do. So I think that's success. I think it's also success to see that your associates, we had an all company meeting this morning where I told them all about it, and I had several people come up to me afterwards and thought it was a really good program that we were doing, and I actually shared a personal story with them. I told them that the reason we're doing this is so that our suppliers feel comfortable being who they are, and we're letting our suppliers know that we embrace it and we love it. We have this new little logo that says Love Diversity. We want our suppliers to know that, because I don't want them to feel the way I felt, not just 5 years ago, before being associated with the NGLCC, where, I was doing business with Hallmark and was afraid to be who I was. So we've come a long way, and that's, to me, that is a success factor for not only your non-diverse associates, but especially your diverse associates.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic, and we've certainly come a long way, and I think this, the discussions we're having are an indication of that. Did anyone else on the call have any questions?
This is JJ Gafrida from GEI. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
I own an operations and process improvement consulting company, and the challenge for us for getting diverse opportunities really comes into two areas. One of them is consulting is difficult to buy because it's not a thing, and the demand comes periodically. So, people that have hired us from Fortune 500 companies, many of them never hired consultants before. They never had the need. They never felt like they needed to do anything. And then when the time came, they knew about us and they called, and that's how we got the opportunity. So if you're looking for, marketing services that we buy, or a janitorial or something like that, that's something that a company will buy regularly as opposed to periodically, and it'll generally go through one area. It'll go through purchasing, or it'll go through maintenance, or what have you. So one of the issues is how do you connect with the people at the time or before the time that they're going to have the need. And then the second thing is, while most of our work has been with very, very large companies, Fortune 50 or what have you, the issue of connecting with other consulting firms is a big challenge for us, because if Kelloggs is going to hire one of the big top 20 consulting firms, we might be able to have consultants on that job as a tier 2 or tier 3, or however it works. But the problem is, we don't always know who's going to be hired, and we would have to have a relationship with those companies. So how do you what do you suggest for people with a more difficult service to buy? And by more difficult, I mean it doesn't go through normally the regular channels. How do we connect when those opportunities come, and how do we get connected if you were to work with Accenture or something like that? And I've talked to Accenture about this as well. It becomes a timing issue. So what recommendations do you have, or what thoughts do you have in that area?
It sounds to me like you're taking the right steps, because you want to be in the Accenture pool, and you want them to be familiar with your capabilities and your experience, so that when they get the quote opportunity from us and it contains a requirement of tier 2 diversity spend, so the Accentures of the world look at it and say, oh, it's a Kellogg job, that means that we have to have, a minimum of 5% diversity spend. Accenture is going to look to their pool and say, what areas can we subcontract in? How are we going to meet this diversity goal? And I think it's building the relationships with the Accentures of the world that really helps there. Just as an aside, one thing I discovered when I first got involved with corporate procurement many years ago is that corporations are very reluctant to recommend using a supplier, because that puts them in a very difficult position. So it's one thing if one of our suppliers comes to me and says, gee, we've got a contract going out and we need maybe customs brokerage or something like that. What diverse companies do you know? I will go to the NGLCC database, I'll go to the WeBank database, and I'll provide them with an entire list of companies in that area. If I were to recommend just one of those companies, it can be interpreted as what we call customer-directed, and then it takes on a whole other connotation when your customer is directing you to use a supplier. So that's always difficult. One thing I will say is that I'm more than willing, like at a trade show, if you were to come up to me and tell me what you do, I might very well say, well, gee, our contract, I don't mean to, use Accenture as the only example, but I might very well say, oh, they're here, they're at booth 321, please let them know that we spoke, and find out if there's any opportunities in their supply chain. So I think that's, one part of it is it's all about the relationship building. I think the other part of it is going back to finding someone to partner with so that you can become more competitive with the Accentures of the world. And I know I just had this happen with a supplier not long ago where she wanted to quote directly some of our business, but she's also a tier 2 supplier, and that would put her in the position of competing with a large customer. So I know that can be quite awkward at times also, and I know you're navigating a minefield there. I think that as far as bringing tiered money, even though you're in consulting, I will say from my experience, I meet law firms, I meet insurance companies, obviously car leasing companies, employee benefits. I think that there are a number of ways that you could, even as a consultant where you're not buying or selling a physical product, you could still come up with a very high diversity content. I know a financial consultant here in West Michigan, and he has actually worked his diversity spend up to about 45% of his total spend just by consciously saying, who am I leasing my car from? Who, to your point, who is doing the office cleaning or the plant maintenance sort of thing. So that might even be a way to help pitch to the Accentures of the world, is to say, not only do I bring diversity, but I bring a slew of diverse suppliers with me, so we can really help you pitch to your corporate clients. I felt like I was rambling. Did that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Vanessa McFarland, and I am a new LGBT diversity person coming in. I'm just curious about getting someone to help mentor me as far as what direction I can go to leverage my business in the corporate diversity world. I'm here located in San Francisco Bay Area, and my business is kind of unusual, being a property preservation business. And I'm drowning here, and I need some suggestions.
Well,
so, Vince, are you a member of your local chamber?
I am a member of the GGBA.
You are, yep. And do they have a supplier diversity, or do they have a program? I think they do, don't they? That you could probably get some help from them locally, because I know that our chamber has really great resources to work with you sort of one-on-one.
Okay. I'll ask them that, because I'm also, I'm a member of the NGLCC. But I have the list and everything, but it's like, where do I go from
No,
this?
It's difficult. Let me tell you, I've been in it now for 4 years, and it's very, you've got to get somebody to help you. Phil, you could probably comment on the resources that will be available at the upcoming conference in Vegas. There's all kinds of resources there. You can meet one-on-one with 10 people during the conference, right, Phil?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have the conference matchmakers, which pair you with corporate buyers based on upcoming opportunities. But in addition to that, we have a tool for connecting with other LGBTBEs. One of the things that we rolled out last year that we're going to be implementing again this year that we're excited about is the industry clusters. So essentially, this is an opportunity where we break down all the LGBTBEs by groups of commodity areas to kind of facilitate discussions around innovation in their industries and best practices. And we found that those really have developed a lot of strong connections and a lot of kind of powerful ways of looking at different ways to connect. In addition to that, we have our LGBTBE mentorship program. So that's available to certified suppliers. This is outside of conference, but that's available to certified LGBTBEs who have been in the program for a year. And we can pair you with other LGBTBEs or corporate procurement officers depending on kind of what your goals are, and it's a one-year program where, it's very structured and helps you work on developing out those specific goals that you're pursuing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we actually have a session for first-time attendees at the conference, don't we?
Correct. So there's also Neil Serbone's Bootcamp, and this is specifically designed for first-time attendees, and it kind of is your it helps you develop your kind of game plan, battle plan for the entire conference. Neil Serbone is the principal of Neil Serbone Associates, and he has some really deep insight into kind of the 360 every way of interacting with other LGBTBEs, everything from developing your elevator pitch to how to interact with potential customers in different environments. So it's an 8-hour all-day course. So if you're attending the conference for the first time, it's going to give you a really deep kind of guide to how to tackle the rest of the conference.
Okay, thank you. So in doing that, that would be a contact that I would make at the conference itself. It's not something I would do beforehand or.
Yeah, so it's at the conference. So it's on the Tuesday prior. It's on the conference pre-day event. And then in addition to that, so those are kind of the more networking-oriented programmings. And then we also have, there's different tracks of thought leadership and panel sessions at the conference. So we have 2 tracks for LGBTBEs, one focused specifically on navigating supplier diversity and procurement channels, and the other is on strategic growth and how to do business with specific industries on the corporate side. So I think, and if you go online and take a look, if you go to nglcc.org/events, you can see the kind of the way that the agenda is laid out. But we definitely have a very there's a lot of people who will be attending the conference for the first time, and we have a lot of solopreneurs and people who are kind of in that same stage. So I think that you'll find that there's a lot of kind of fertile ground for developing those connections.
And I would just like to say congratulations on getting your certification. I mean, you've taken a major step there, and that's wonderful. And I think the other second step you've taken, and you probably don't realize it, is really just being on this call and speaking up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So take advantage of everything NGLCC and your local chamber has to offer. Practice your elevator speech so you become more and more confident in your capabilities. I often tell a story. Our CEO at Kellogg walks around in a blue sweater with the logo on it, and I literally heard him walk up to a WBE one time and say, "Hi, my name is John. I'm with Kellogg. What do you do?" And she was not only was she not prepared, but she wasn't in the moment. And she never responded. She excused herself to walk across the room. And I frequently think about if she had practiced her elevator speech and was in the moment and had told him what she does and what sets her business apart, what makes her unique, that he would have taken that back to his leadership team and said, "Hey, I met somebody the other day. Let's see if we can't get them, into our operations." So practice in front of a mirror, use a camera, have a friend, talk to the dog, right? But, work on it so that by the time you get to the conference, you're quite confident in what differentiates you and what value you can bring to potential customers.
I think that's really key. And I also think that as you experience the conference, it'll kind of emerge even more clearly because you'll be interacting with, other LGBTBEs who you're able to, there's thinking about who you can partner with, who you can team with based on commodity and geography. But a big part of the Supplier Diversity Initiative is, telling people to stand up and be counted and having people tell their story. So I think you're going to find a lot of people with similar experience, some who maybe have had it in the past and are, at a different stage of growth. But I think that sense of community kind of developing on dual tracks, I think will kind of help you move along that path, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank you so much.
As a fellow LGBTBE, I'd say welcome to the family. There's a lot of adventure ahead, but the water is warm. The pool is fun to swim in. But what I would ask, Phil, is on this mentorship program, how does one tap into it as one who wants to be a mentor, and how does one tap into it as one who needs a mentor? Mm-hmm. How does one tap it?
Sure. Well, you can actually reach out to us directly. I think the pairing, so it's done annually, and I think they started in March of this year. But if you're interested in mentorship, if you're interested in being a mentor and being a mentee, that's something that you can definitely reach out to us directly. And the formal pairings start, it's a very structured program. So that the structured program that lasts for 1 year those pairings are done in the first quarter of the year. There's an application that goes out and kind of a call for participants. But beyond that, we also have our ambassador program in which, we engage some seasoned certified LGBTBEs who have more success navigating the program and pair them more informally with certified LGBTBEs who are kind of finding their footing in the Supplier Diversity Initiative. So if you're interested in mentorship and you're interested in sharing your experience, that's certainly something that we can, do on an ongoing basis. And it's certainly something that we, try to have be meaningful on both sides. So if there's specific types of businesses that you're looking to meet, whether they're in your footprint or, in a certain area of business, we can, make kind of those strategic introductions.
Okay. I'm very interested personally. Like I said, I just need, I guess I'm kind of one of those persons where if you take my hand and show me, I can do it, But I'm fumbling around right now.
I think, I always equate things with, I always feel as though every time you start a new experience, you're in a dark room with a flashlight, right? And so you can only see where that flashlight beam is pointed. So I agree with everything that's been said. What you need is to seek out some teams and some support networks so that you've got a multitude of flashlights all shining in the same area, and it gives you a wider visibility. So, again, the SBTDC, they do small business counseling. They help you with putting together business plans for growth. They can help you with economic pictures. They can help you with marketing. And as a federal taxpayer, you're already paying for it. They're not going to charge you for it. Your local chamber, getting your feet in the water and getting those valuable networking skills of seeing, hearing the stories of some successful people, what it is they've done. And I think don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to say, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Would you be willing to give me a little extra time here because I'm new? I think we have a very supportive community in the entire NGLCC family. Applying for the mentoring when you're eligible, because all success stories, I hear a lot of success stories coming out of that, and I am also acting as a mentor in that program. So I think, seeing success on both sides of the table there, but really start to take advantage of those opportunities that are out there. And again, even if it's a potential customer, instead of you're not going to appear foolish. Just go ahead and ask the question, how should I follow up with you? What format? Do you want me to call you in a couple of weeks, or do you want me to follow up with email? And really start to expand your communications. And I think you'll get all positive feedback. I really do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And just keep in mind that especially when you're interacting with supplier diversity professionals such as Deborah or at the conference, they're a platform, they're a gateway to a procurement chain, but they also are there because those companies have made a commitment to investing in the LGBT community and to investing in, the supplier diversity program. And we're always hearing broadly across the spectrum from our corporate partners that not only is finding LGBTBEs for specific contracting opportunities important, but supplier development and guidance is also important to them as well. So that's certainly something that, that's a really powerful resource that you're going to get as a participant in the Supplier Diversity Initiative.
Okay. Thank you so much.
This is Wendy with WM Martin Advertising. I currently have like strategic alliances. My company does promotional advertising, but I do have strategic alliances with a sculpture company for trade shows and corporate interiors, designs such as like SeaWorld stages.
Mm-hmm.
And I am really not sure how to present that. And I also have and they're women-owned, and I also have another alliance with a copywriting group. So I know that's why I'm on this. We have some contracts. We definitely keep track of our diverse spending. Since we joined about a year and a half ago and became certified with NGLCC, we're reaching out more and more, and it's been a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, if you haven't gone to the conference, definitely recommend it to anybody who's on this call. But I really don't know how to, showcase that we do design solutions and trade show custom interiors and exhibits.
Do you have you developed a capability statement or a line card?
I do have a capability statement. I guess I do just add that, but these sculptures and everything are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I need to just be blogging about it in all this other social media.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that as well. I mean, it's good when you do, I think when you do the matchmakers or when you're interacting, if you can give someone a takeaway. Some people, have zip drives that they give to people that have a more kind of richer case study of your experience. So that might not be something that you want to give to everyone that you interact with, but, maybe for someone that's you're having a deeper conversation with. And again, that's also something that, you can kind of be creative in your communications materials to make sure that that's getting across.
Okay. Nice.
But you said you've had success in the past through those alliances, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, we've even gotten recognition through WBE before I became certified with NGLCC as far as doing alliances with other WBE companies.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter, and again, I mean, it's really interesting, and I think it's something that people will certainly, remember. It's just a matter of communicating it and being creative, I think, in your materials.
Okay.
Yeah, Wendy, I like your idea of actually blogging something like that, and I think that one of the things we were thinking about is creating kind of a little, diverse company, little logo kind of thing that you can actually apply to whatever material you use to promote that sculpture, that sculptor. So when you've got somebody looking at it, they're going to go, oh, they're a diverse company as well. So I don't know, something like that.
Okay, well, I'll definitely have another brainstorming session with them. And Dan, I'm certainly interested. I think we could be a good fit somewhere along the line. So. Yeah,
it sounds like it, for sure.
Okay.
I think the other thing is that I've learned over the years that if a supplier comes up to me and I don't immediately understand what they do or how they fit into the corporate world, that I will ask them, who do you usually speak with in the corporations? But not everybody has been doing supplier diversity as long as I have, so you might just need to connect the dots for them. If someone gets that deer in the headlights look, then you might just say, usually I speak with corporate communications, or usually I speak with fulfillment, and connect the dots for them and make it easy for them so that they can give you maybe a name or an email of someone that would be more knowledgeable and would be easier for you to access and understand what you're doing.
Yeah, I think and to that point, it's important to remember that the supplier diversity advocates are very much generalists, so they're interacting with suppliers across every commodity. So you kind of have to give them the ammunition to be able to connect you with the appropriate category and be able to be your advocate when they're communicating, kind of making those connections internally.
Okay, yeah, I think I might have to work with my copywriter and because I know the capability sheet, it says all the NCAS codes and SIC codes and our certification numbers, but I tried to make it exciting. But maybe if I threw a couple of design pictures on it or, like you said, did the flash drive, that might be helpful. I'm just worried that they might not actually look at the flash drive. But if I gave it to the right people, that would certainly make an impact.
Absolutely.
Nice. And, you know, the other thing is you might even consider embedding a short video in your email signature.
Ah.
Because increasingly corporate buyers are utilizing things like YouTube, you know, to search for suppliers. But that way, if you send me a follow-up email after a conference and I send it out to the procurement team, the embedded video is right there. So even though they have not met with you, you have full control over the overview and what products you are, services that you're promoting.
Oh, I like that idea. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm glad I got on this phone call and actually spoke up at the last minute.
Yes.
All right. Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Dan and Deborah for participating. For those who did participate in the call, to Deborah's point, we can share some resources in terms of best practices for connecting with other diverse suppliers, events to attend, things that you're going to want to think about in terms of who are the best partners for you and how to be prepared, prior to entering a partnership. Dan has also created a really great takeaway guide for certified suppliers that are interested in developing their own supplier diversity program, thinking about, kind of the mission of a supplier diversity program from the perspective of an LGBTBE, and some of the kind of best practices for building it out and how you can be successful, finding opportunities at different points of the supply chain, and including diversity in your own purchasing goals. So I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I wanted to thank everyone for participating. Again, I strongly encourage you to visit nglcc.org/events and learn more about our conference. There's going to be not only, some really powerful opportunities to connect with corporate partners, but some really priceless opportunities to connect with other LGBTBEs as well. And I think after participating in this call, hopefully you'll be well armed and have some food for thought about your goals in that area.
Thank you all.
Well, and thanks, Bill. This is Dan, and Deborah, thank you. I learned a lot from you as well.
This is very well done, you all. Thank you very much for taking the time to present to us.
Thank you.
See you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.